Well, this is going to be a fun conversation to have because I don't really know how to gauge talking about this show, especially now. It's very weird. It's The Mandalorian season 3. I have to talk about it. I've talked about the past 2 seasons in some capacity. I am a Star Wars fan. I do like Star Wars, and I do like the direction Star Wars is heading. I've liked most of the Disney releases. I've liked most of the shows they've made. I don't know how to really gauge this show. It's kind of fascinating that's where we are, isn't it? This season in particular, the discourse has been so interesting to watch because there are people who are adamantly against what it's doing. There are people who are in support of what it's doing. When in reality, what is it really doing if not the same thing it's been doing the whole time? That's, I guess, is like my main takeaway about this season of the show. What are you complaining about? This is what it's been doing since it was conceived. It just doesn't look as good. That's the big difference. It has the same vibes. It has the same aesthetic. It's just shot in a worse way. That is the main difference Season 3 has to the previous couple of seasons. And that's a conversation in its own right. Season 1 opened with this beautiful cinematography, and we were using this new technology. Well, the thing happened to The Mandalorian that happened to every other property that tried to use the volume since. It got complicit with the technology, and now it doesn't need to try as hard. We used it really well earlier on in this show, but now we have to get a Season 3 out there. Our scripts aren't as polished as they used to be. The thing we're trying to do is now more world building and setup-y as opposed to standalone adventure. So we can cut back on lighting and on budgeting for certain aspects and just get it out there. This isn't me talking negatively about the show. I genuinely think this season is as good as any other. It just doesn't look as good. And that could be a big deterrent for some people. I know there's complaints about the lighting, and I do agree with those complaints. The lighting is a huge problem that a lot of these shows are facing now. Why does it look so bright all the time, and why does it look so soundstagey all the time? We have the ability not to make it look like that, so I'm just curious as to why this studio is going in that direction. It makes me worried for a lot of the projects coming out from this company. A lot of the projects. Insane. There's also a part of this that is hard to watch post Andor, because Andor had big sets, a beautiful script, a tight production, everything felt cohesive and perfect and fun and distilled and about something. And this isn't. It just isn't. I don't really know what the theme or what we're trying to tell here. I guess it's just that it's no longer the Din Djarin story, and it's now about the Mandalorian at large, which I don't know if that's new or a new concept. That seems like what it's been saying since its conception, right? It's called The Mandalorian. That could mean it's just about Din, or it could mean it's about the Mandalorian as a creed. That's pretty much what it's been about, because a lot of these characters have been appearing in the show since it started. And that's interesting. I'm really talking around a lot of things in this show, aren't I? The truth is, there's nothing to say here. There's nothing I could say to you that hasn't either already been said by somebody or is worth talking about. There's just nothing interesting to say. It is just Star Wars-y stuff in the Mandalorian sphere. Like, it just does the thing it's been doing well enough to the point where people will smile. And I liked a majority of what we saw. I think the visual effects for the big monsters look good. The practical effects look really nice. There are some interesting storylines they are playing with that I do like to see. But at the end of the day, and again, this is just my opinion and something I have felt from the beginning, the Mandalorian creed and the idea are cooler when we know nothing about them. Spending 8 episodes just seeing them be a bunch of goofballs, flying into, like, monsters and fighting big birds, and I don't care. It just doesn't look compelling. Which I guess is the criticism, because this show is trying to balance, like, the standalone episode. We're going on a singular journey with, this is impacting the entire world. Look at us set up the Clone Wars and everything. Which is weird. And there's something about this, and this is just speculation. I have no way of knowing. There's something about this season in particular that is very much holdovers from what the Rangers of the New Republic show is going to be. You remember when they announced that show? And they're like, we got a new thing set in this universe. It's going to spin off of that. The characters you saw in the first 2 seasons are going to... Gina Carano, maybe, you know? Well, those ideas are being played here. We go to Coruscant with characters that we've seen before. The X-Wing pilots are back. They're dealing with that stuff, setting up the idea of cloning and everything. And Moff Gideon was clearly going to be like a big bad of that arc and that kind of vibe. A lot of that feels like it was pushed over to this season because we needed to fill time with the actual story we're telling, which isn't Din's story. And this is something, again, complete speculation on my part, something I have been saying for a while. I think this season confirms it. Pedro Pascal's not in the suit. He's not. I do not believe for a second he is in 100% of the suit. Excluding the times where it's stuntmen, I think he's in it for maybe a couple of scenes. Key scenes where his physicality is important to the character. But there's like 2-3 Mandalorian maybe that take off their helmets this season. Bo-Katan, other people. No, it's not Pedro Pascal. It's not. I don't buy that. And that makes it easier to produce this because we don't have to wait for our leading actors to be there. We just get the stuntmen, we set them in the back room, and we film something. The fight scenes are nice. The choreography is nice. But it just doesn't have that spark, which happens. It happens to a majority of television. And the problem is that today, every single piece of content has a shorter half-life than it previously did. We could have gone in 2005 to 2015 with 10 seasons of this show, but 2019 to 2023, we have 3 seasons. You feel the deterioration building. And that just happens. Too much content does that to things, and it just ruins it. When we were just integrated with Star Wars all the time and other franchises all the time and all this stuff just accumulating into one thing, none of it means anything anymore, which is the case for this. Or I could be completely wrong. Maybe people are still feeling this is holding out. A lot of the opinion is like, oh, where are we going with this? We spent a long time with characters we don't like, but I'd argue those characters we spend time with, like the entire episode on Coruscant, way more interesting than anything Din Djarin does this season. He is a lame character and had nothing interesting to say here. Really fascinating to see that progression of like, hey, we're going to be using old Imperial tech, but we're also going to use the officers, which, again, it goes into that thing that Andor was doing, which is just like talking about the real world politics of the time. Like, it's kind of essentially using Imperial tech for the New Republic. That's just like taking the stuff that the Nazis and things built and having them work for NASA and that kind of vibe. You know, that's the vibe it's going off. That's what it's saying. But then it's just like, well, Din has to bathe in the waters to be reborn as a Mandalorian. And then when that's done, episode 3 or 2, it's all about Bo-Katan. And I've never seen a stronger case for why she should have been the lead of this show as opposed to Din for 2 seasons. I'm pretty sure you could have done the same plot line, essentially, with Bo-Katan. Because, one, Katie Sackhoff, on set more than Pedro. I don't care what you say. She is. She is the lead character whose face you see. She shows up. I'm sure Carl Weathers was on set more than Pedro. And he just shows up. It's like, Doth, welcome to my place. We're going to fight a vegetable monster that has like a Shmi with him. And I'm like, what are we doing? I like the vegetable monster Swamp Thing motherfucker. That's cool. But is that cool to anybody besides me? You know? It's so strange that way. But Bo-Katan, she, I guess, wins in the end. That's cool. Moff Gideon's back. That's cool. Where are we going? What are we doing? Yeah, I don't know. Like, I did enjoy the show. I watched every episode, and I was kind of amped to see what's going to do. The character designs are still really good. The inspiration it's drawing from, I guess you could see it like this. First season, And the second season were like Western, spaghetti Westerns, these old style things, you know, samurai flicks, everything coming together, this like stuff, like these old warriors teaming up to go on this one mission, very, you know, Akira Kurosawa. And this one's just kind of like, what if we went on an adventure? We're Peter Pan and Wendy. Look at us go to a thing and we're all having fun. I liked when Lizzo and Jack Black showed up. I know that's a huge point of contention for some people, but that's just what Star Wars is. It's just people you know being there for a minute. Quit complaining. They have fun. Look at them. His name's Bombardier. What more do you want from this fucking universe? That's a dope name. And Christopher Lloyd was a Dooku supporter. I'm like, what are we doing? That stuff is cool. And then I'm just like, okay, I get it. You're Mandalorian. You got to have a creed or something. And you got to go back to Mandalore. I've never cared about the Mandalorian lore. It means nothing to me. And I think this show, in this season in particular, it's kind of proved there's nothing more to say. What else do we really have to say? It also kind of ends with like, we don't really have anything else to say. Everyone just kind of won, you know? It definitely feels like treading water, which is a huge problem for a big budgeted show like this, which is a staple of your streaming service. When you have nothing new to say, nothing that is going to pique characters or audience interest, just stop. Just don't do it then, you know? But if this is the ending, fine. You know, you set up some cool stuff leading into the cloning with the Emperor and whatever you have there. We set up like a larger world of the New Republic stuff. We do have Dave Filoni making a finale movie to this universe, which is important. Get it over with, because I don't know. I don't think there's anything left to say in this era that matters. Bo-Katan had an ending. Din Djarin, ending. Armorer, okay, you know? What else is there to do? What else is there to say? This is why I'm very nervous for Ahsoka, because I'm like, what are we even going to do? Like, are we setting up for Thrawn? Why? I don't know. I think Star Wars is back in that spot, which is scary and kind of exciting if you think about it. It's kind of cool that we're back in this era where Star Wars isn't revered, but it is still coming out and making money, so we can have good Star Wars and bad Star Wars coexisting. That makes me happy, because I'm like, that's what it should be. I shouldn't be watching every single episode that comes out from the Lucasfilm Star Wars umbrella and being like, it's a fucking masterpiece. It's brilliant cinema personified. I shouldn't. If I can see one cool episode a season and be like, that was really interesting, that looks good, the rest of the time I'm like, yeah, this is kind of like a cheap budgeted thing where we're just a bunch of guys playing with their action figures. And another thing, I don't want to harp on this too much. Star Wars for a long time has been a bunch of guys playing with action figures. I think we're past that phase. I don't think we need to do that kind of style anymore. Favreau made this something unique. I would argue that there's been better stuff said in the era. I don't know. I think it's weird. Maybe it's time for new creators to do something in the Star Wars umbrella, because season 3 of The Mandalorian, it really didn't have anything new to offer. There's only so many times you can see the Mandalorian like light somebody on fire kind of, or fight the same looking troopers, or we make a new trooper each season. Don't worry, the villain's gonna wear a Mandalorian looking outfit. So that's fun. Yeah. Do I hate Star Wars? No, I do like Star Wars. I just don't like the Mandalorians. I think they're all kind of lame. The way I've always seen it, if I was in the Star Wars universe, I'd make fun of them, because I'm like, just take your helmet off and eat the fucking pudding in front of you, dude. I don't care about your creed or your code. This is the way. You sound like a loser, you know? What have you done for me lately? Yeah, okay. I am super exhausted by the time I'm recording this. I don't even know if I said anything cohesive, so let's end on some final notes. Production design is the same, but the aesthetic is kind of down. The scripts don't seem as polished. The actors don't seem as into it. The half-life of entertainment grows smaller and smaller and smaller every second. Mandalorian Season 3 shows there could be kinks in the armor, and there's nothing new to say. So, Season 3 of The Mandalorian, or Mando, as Carl Weathers would say, 5 out of 10. Thank you all for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And I will catch you all in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.